She looked up at him. This man who'd traced every curve of her body like he was memorizing scripture, who'd held her daughter on his shoulders at the zoo, who'd promised her that love could conquer the differences between their worlds. Have you ever been humiliated so completely that it changed your DNA? Hi, viewers. Kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. She thought he was about to propose. Instead, he destroyed her world with 8 words. I've been seeing someone else who's carrying my child. The champagne glass slipped from Raquel's fingers, crystal exploding against marble as Houston's most exclusive restaurant fell deadly quiet. Every face at their table turned toward her. Friends who'd watched their secret romance bloom over 2 years, now witnessing its brutal execution. Have you ever felt your heart stop beating while your body kept moving? Have you ever smiled while dying inside because strangers were watching? That's where Raquel Evans found herself on what should have been the happiest night of her life. Nathaniel Brooks stood there in his custom suit, worth more than most people's cars, delivering her death sentence with the same calm tone he used in boardroom meetings. The man who whispered sweet promises against her skin just hours earlier now spoke like she was a business transaction gone wrong. She'll be moving into the main house tomorrow, he continued, cutting deeper. As my new personal assistant. And Raquel, his eyes finally met hers, cold as Houston concrete in winter. You'll need to find somewhere else to stay. The problem wasn't just the betrayal, it was the audience. Marcus, his business partner, shifted uncomfortably. Sarah, his sister-in-law, covered her mouth in shock. But worst of all was the smirk on Jennifer's face, Nathaniel's ex who'd never accepted their relationship. This wasn't random cruelty. This was calculated destruction. Raquel's mind raced back to that morning when she'd ironed his lucky tie, the same one he wore to close million-dollar deals. She'd kissed his neck as he adjusted his cufflinks, tasting his cologne mixed with morning coffee. He'd pulled her close, whispering, "Tonight changes everything, baby." He wasn't lying. Tonight changed everything, just not the way she dreamed. The restaurant buzzed with whispered conversations. Camera phones appeared like vultures circling fresh prey. Houston's elite loved their scandals, especially when it involved one of their own slumming with the help. Because that's what she was, wasn't she? The housekeeper who forgot her place. The girl from New Orleans who thought she could play in Millionaire games. The single mother who believed fairy tales still existed. Raquel. Nathaniel's voice cut through her thoughts. Did you hear what I said? She looked up at him. This man who'd traced every curve of her body like he was memorizing scripture, who'd held her daughter on his shoulders at the zoo, who'd promised her that love could conquer the differences between their worlds. Standing up slowly, Raquel felt something shift inside her chest. Not breaking. Breaking would come later, in private, where broken hearts belonged. This was harder than breaking. This was crystallizing into something sharp enough to cut. I heard you perfectly, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her chest. Every eye in the restaurant focused on her response. You found yourself a replacement, Maid who spreads her legs better than she cleans. Jennifer gasped. Marcus choked on his wine. Even Nathaniel's composure cracked for half a second. Now here's what you didn't hear, Raquel continued, walking around the table until she stood inches from him. Close enough to smell his cologne. Close enough to remember how those lips used to worship her body. Close enough to make sure every word landed like a bullet. You just threw away the only woman who loved Nathaniel Brooks, the high school dropout from Third Ward, not Nathaniel Brooks, the real estate king. But don't worry. I'm sure your pregnant assistant will love your money just fine. She reached in her purse, pulling out the key to his River Oaks mansion. The key he'd given her 6 months ago with trembling hands, calling it our first step toward forever. Keep this, she said, pressing the cold metal against his palm. You're going to need something to remember what real love felt like before you traded it for whatever this is. The silence stretched like a hell breath. Camera phones captured every angle. Tomorrow's gossip columns would feast on this moment for weeks. But Raquel Evans was done being anyone's entertainment. Oh, and Nathaniel? She paused at the restaurant entrance, every head turning her way. When your little project gets boring. And trust me, Bot loyalty always does. Don't come looking for me. Some bridges burned completely. The valet brought her beat-up Honda to the front, a stark contrast to the Bentleys and Ferraris lining the street. As she drove away from River Oaks toward her sister's apartment in 3rd Ward, Raquel felt tears finally break free. But mixed with the salt water was something else. Something that tasted like rage and smelled like revenge. Have you ever been humiliated so completely that it changed your DNA? That's what just happened to Raquel Evans. What she didn't know yet was that tonight's betrayal would birth tomorrow's queen. The real question isn't why he destroyed her. It's what she'll build from the ashes. She woke up on her sister's couch wearing yesterday's dress and today's heartbreak. Sunlight streamed through Keisha's 3rd Ward apartment windows, highlighting everything Raquel had tried to forget. The chipped paint, the sirens outside, the smell of bacon grease that never quite left the walls. This was reality without Nathaniel's money buffering the edges. "Girl, you look like death warmed over," Keisha said, standing in the kitchen doorway with 4-year-old Destiny on her hip. "Coffee's ready, and so my questions." Raquel's phone buzzed with text messages she couldn't bear to read. Probably reporters wanting quotes for their Millionaire's Maid meltdown stories. Maybe friends asking if the videos circulating on social media were real. Definitely not Nathaniel apologizing. "Mama." A small voice cut through her thoughts. 7-year-old Zoe appeared beside the couch, still in pajamas, dark eyes wide with concern. "Why are we sleeping at Aunt Keisha's?" The question hit harder than any of Nathaniel's words. How do you explain to a child that the man she called Uncle Nate, who bought her books and helped with homework, just threw them away like yesterday's newspaper? "We're having a sleepover, baby," Raquel managed, pulling Zoe onto her lap. Sometimes grown-ups need sister time. But Zoe wasn't fooled. She'd inherited her mother's ability to read people like open books. "Did Uncle Nate make you cry?" Before Raquel could answer, Keisha's TV erupted with morning news drama. Houston businessman Nathaniel Brooks announced his engagement to personal assistant Amanda Rodriguez last night at the exclusive Brennan's restaurant. However, the celebration took an unexpected turn when Brooks' former housekeeper caused a scene. Raquel's stomach dropped. Not just pregnant, engaged. How long had he been planning this execution? "Turn it off," she whispered, but the damage was done. There she was on screen, face twisted with hurt and rage, delivering her parting shots while photographers captured every angle. The reporter's voice continued. "Rodriguez, 24, is reportedly 6 months pregnant with Brooks' child. Sources close to the couple say they've been secretly dating for over a year." Over a year. While he was whispering promises in Raquel's ear, while he was making love to her body like she was precious, while he was playing daddy to her daughter, he was building a whole other life. "That bastard," Keisha muttered, clicking off the TV. "And that girl looks like she just graduated high school. Was she barely legal?" Raquel studied her sister's face. The same high cheekbones and full lips they'd inherited from their grandmother, but Keisha's eyes held a hardness that came from never trusting fairy tales. She'd warned Raquel about dating above her station, about men who keep you in shadows instead of sunshine. "I was so stupid," Raquel whispered. 2 years of my life, thinking I was special." "You were special," Keisha said firmly. "Just not to him. And honey, that's his loss, not yours." But it felt like loss everywhere Raquel looked. No job. Who hires the woman who publicly destroyed Houston's real estate golden boy? No home. Everything she owned fit in 2 suitcases. No savings. She'd been so blinded by love that she never demanded proper payment, just accepted his gifts and promises. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she looked. "Unknown number," saw the news. "You deserve better. Call me when you're ready to fight back." "M. Who's M?" Keisha asked, reading over her shoulder. Raquel stared at the message, her pulse quickening for the first time since last night's disaster. Only one person came to mind. Marcus Webb, Nathaniel's business partner, who'd always treated her with more respect than the rest of their circle. Marcus, who'd built his own empire from nothing. Marcus, who knew all of Nathaniel's secrets and weaknesses. Marcus, whose dark eyes had lingered on her a little too long at company parties while his wedding ring caught the light. "I don't know," she lied, deleting the message before her sister could ask more questions. But as she held Zoe close, breathing in her daughter's innocent trust, one thought crystallized. Maybe it was time to stop being the victim and start being the villain in Nathaniel's story. After all, he taught her that love was just another business transaction. Time to learn how to negotiate. 3 days later, Marcus Webb sat across from Raquel at a downtown coffee shop that smelled like burned beans and broken dreams. "You look like hell," he said, sliding a latte toward her with hands that probably cost more than her monthly salary in manicures. "Thanks for the pep talk," Raquel muttered, but she accepted the coffee gratefully. Keisha's couch wasn't built for sleeping, and her body ached in places she'd forgotten existed. Marcus leaned back, studying her with those calculating eyes that had helped him build a construction empire worth hundreds of millions. Even in jeans and a simple black t-shirt, he looked expensive, the kind of expensive that came from growing up poor and never forgetting it. "I have a proposition," he said directly. No small talk, no pretense. Just business, the way she was learning to appreciate. "I need someone to oversee the interior design for my new hotel project. 5-star luxury, downtown location. 6-month contract, full creative control." Raquel nearly choked on her coffee. "Marcus, I clean houses. I don't design them." "You clean Nathaniel's houses," he corrected. "But I've seen how you arranged his spaces when you thought nobody was watching. That man has no artistic sense. Everything beautiful in his home came from your touch." Heat crept up her neck. Had Marcus been watching her that closely? And if so, what else had he noticed during those company dinners when his wife was traveling for work? Besides, Marcus continued, his voice dropping lower, "You need money, and I need someone I can trust. Someone who understands what it feels like to build something from nothing." What's the catch? Because with men like Marcus Webb, there was always a catch. His smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "The hotel opens 6 months from now. Same weekend as Nathaniel's wedding." The timing wasn't coincidental. Nothing Marcus Webb did was ever coincidental. "You want me to compete with his wedding?" Raquel asked carefully. "I want you to eclipse it," Marcus said, leaning forward until she could smell his cologne, different from Nathaniel's, more dangerous somehow. "Picture this. Houston's elite attending your hotel's grand opening while Nathaniel marries his pregnant teenager across town. Who do you think I'll be talking about?" The idea sent electricity through her chest. Not just revenge, resurrection. Rising from the ashes of her humiliation like some kind of phoenix wearing designer shoes. "What about your wife?" Raquel asked, because someone had to be practical here. Marcus's expression darkened for just a moment. "Elena's been living in New York for 8 months. Our marriage has been over in everything but paperwork for 2 years. Something in his tone made her study his face more carefully. The slight tension around his eyes, the way his wedding ring caught the light like a burden instead of a promise. Marcus Webb, the man who seemed to have everything, was just as broken as she was, just better at hiding it. "I can't pay you back," she said honestly. "Not yet, anyway." Who said anything about paying back? His hand moved across the table, fingers brushing hers with deliberate intent. "Consider it an investment in Houston's next power couple." The words hung between them like a proposition and a promise. Raquel felt her pulse quicken at the contact, her body responding to male attention for the first time since Nathaniel's betrayal. Marcus was attractive in a completely different way. Where Nathaniel was polished charm, Marcus was raw power. "I need to think about it," she said, not pulling her hand away. "Of course you do." Marcus stood, pulling out his wallet and leaving enough cash to cover their coffee and a generous tip. "But don't think too long. Houston's elite have short memories, and right now, you're still interesting enough to matter." He paused beside her chair, close enough that she could feel the heat from his body. "By the way, Raquel, Nathaniel's been calling me, asking questions about you. Seems like he's having second thoughts about his little announcement." Before she could respond, Marcus was gone, leaving her alone with racing thoughts and a business card that felt like a loaded weapon. Her phone buzzed. Nathaniel's name appeared on the screen for the first time since the restaurant disaster. She stared at it for 3 rings before making the most important decision of her life. She declined to call. Raquel Evans walked into Marcus Webb's downtown office building like she owned it. 2 weeks of planning had transformed her from heartbroken housekeeper to something sharper, more dangerous. The black dress hugged curves that had driven Nathaniel crazy, but today they were weapons in a different war. Her hair fell in waves past her shoulders, and her lips were painted the color of fresh blood. She'd spent Keisha's grocery money on this outfit, but some battles required proper armor. "Ms. Evans," Marcus's assistant said, looking surprised. "Mr. Webb wasn't expecting you until—" "He's expecting me now," Raquel interrupted, walking past the desk toward the corner office. Through the glass walls, she could see Marcus on the phone, his back to the door as he looked out over Houston's skyline. She knocked once and entered without waiting for permission. Marcus turned, phone still pressed to his ear, and his eyes went dark when he saw her. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone, never breaking eye contact with Raquel. "I've been thinking about your offer," she said, closing the door behind her with deliberate slowness. And Marcus moved around his desk, stopping close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. "I want more than creative control," Raquel said, her voice steady despite the way he was looking at her, like a predator who'd just spotted prey. "I want my name on the project. Co-designer, not just consultant." Marcus's smile was pure appreciation. "What else?" "Marketing budget. I want billboards, magazine spreads, social media campaigns. I want Houston to know exactly who designed their new favorite playground." "Done." His answer came too quickly. Either he was impressed by her demands, or he'd been planning to give her more power all along. "Anything else?" Raquel stepped closer until she could feel the heat radiating from his body. This close, she could see the gray threads in his dark hair, the way his expensive shirt stretched across broad shoulders that had probably swung hammers before they signed million-dollar contracts. "I want to know why you're really doing this," she said softly. Marcus reached up, his fingers barely grazing her cheek. "Maybe I like watching Phoenix rise from ashes. Or maybe you want to hurt Nathaniel as much as I do." His hand stilled against her face. "What makes you think I want to hurt my business partner?" "Because you've been watching me for months," Raquel said, reading the truth in his eyes. "Because your marriage is falling apart and you're looking for a distraction. Because men like you don't rescue women like me unless there's something in it for them." Marcus dropped his hand but didn't step back. "You're very perceptive." "I have to be. I've been invisible for too long." Raquel moved even closer until their bodies were almost touching. "So tell me, Marcus, what do you really want?" His eyes dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. "I want to watch Nathaniel lose everything that matters to him. His reputation, his business connections, his sense of superiority." Marcus's voice was low, dangerous. "And I want him to know that you were the weapon that destroyed him." The confession should have scared her. Instead, it excited her in ways she hadn't felt since before Nathaniel's betrayal. This was power, raw, honest, and completely hers to wield. "What did he do to you?" she asked. Marcus was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "Then, he's been stealing my clients for 6 months, underbidding my projects, spreading rumors about my company's reliability, all while smiling in my face and calling me his closest friend." The pieces clicked into place. The River Oaks development deal should have been mine. Nathaniel knew I needed that contract to keep my company afloat after Elena's divorce lawyer gets through with me. Raquel understood now. This wasn't just about her humiliation. It was about 2 men circling each other like sharks, and she was the perfect weapon for Marcus to draw first blood. "Partners?" she asked, extending her hand. Marcus took it, his thumb tracing across her knuckles in a way that sent heat straight through her body. "Partners." But as their hands touched, Raquel realized she might be playing with fire that could burn them both. Her phone buzzed with another missed call from Nathaniel. This time, she smiled when she declined it. 6 weeks later, Raquel stood in the skeleton of what would become Houston's most exclusive hotel, watching construction workers transform her vision into reality. The old bank building downtown had good bones, high ceilings, marble floors, and enough history to make every wealthy Houstonian nostalgic for the city's oil boom glory days. But Raquel was adding something the old money crowd had never seen: luxury with soul. The chandeliers arrive tomorrow, Marcus said, appearing beside her with coffee and the kind of smile that had been getting more frequent and more intimate over the past month and a half. Custom crystal from Prague, Raquel said, accepting the coffee gratefully. Each piece hand-selected to catch the light from those new floor-to-ceiling windows. Marcus watched her face as she described the design, his expression unreadable. You know you're beautiful when you talk about your work. Heat crept up her neck. These moments between them had been building for weeks. Accidental touches during planning meetings, lingering looks over architectural drawings, conversations that lasted long after the construction crew went home. Marcus, she said carefully, because they'd been dancing around this attraction like professionals when they both knew better. I know, he said, moving closer. We agreed to keep this business only. That was before you started looking at me like I'm dessert and you've been starving. His laugh was rough around the edges. You want honesty? I've been starving for 2 years. Elena checked out of our marriage long before she moved to New York, and I've been so focused on keeping my business alive that I forgot what it felt like to want something just for me. The confession hung between them like a bridge they could either cross or burn. And what do you want? Raquel asked, stepping closer until she could feel his body heat. Right now, I want to push you against that marble wall and remind you what it feels like to be worshipped instead of discarded. His words sent liquid fire straight through her core. It had been 2 months since anyone had touched her with desire instead of pity. 2 months since she'd felt beautiful instead of broken. The construction crew goes to lunch in 10 minutes. Marcus finished, his hands settling on her waist. And I've been imagining this moment since you walked into my office wearing that black dress like armor. Raquel looked around the empty space that would soon host Houston's elite, then back at Marcus's face. The want there was honest, raw, and completely different from Nathaniel's calculated charm. This complicates everything, she whispered, even as her body moved closer to his. Good, Marcus said, his mouth brushing against her ear. I'm tired of simple. When his lips finally found hers, Raquel tasted desperation mixed with promise. His hands tangled in her hair while hers gripped his shirt, pulling him against her until there was no space left between their bodies. This wasn't the gentle romance she'd shared with Nathaniel. This was hunger recognizing hunger, 2 people tired of pretending they didn't want to devour each other. Marcus pressed her back against the marble wall, just like he'd promised, his mouth trailing down her neck while his hands explored curves he'd been watching for weeks. God, you taste even better than I imagined. Marcus, she gasped, arching against him as his teeth found that sensitive spot where her neck met her shoulder. We can't. Not here. Then where? His voice was rough with need. Because I'm done pretending this is just business between us. Before she could answer, the sound of approaching voices echoed through the construction site. The lunch crew was returning early. They broke apart, both breathing hard, clothes disheveled and lips swollen from kisses that promised more. Tonight, Raquel said, smoothing down her hair with shaking hands. My place. After Zoe goes to sleep. Marcus's eyes went dark with promise. I'll bring dinner. I'll provide dessert, she said, then walked away before she could change her mind. But as she left the construction site, Raquel's phone buzzed with a text that made her blood run cold. Nathaniel, I know what you're doing with Marcus. We need to talk. Tonight. Some games had higher stakes than others. Tonight, Raquel was about to find out exactly what she'd gotten herself into. The war for her future was just beginning. Nathaniel Brooks stood on Keisha's front porch at 9 p.m. sharp, looking like $1 million and smelling like regret. Raquel opened the door with one hand, phone in the other, Marcus's name flashing on the screen. She declined the call without looking away from the man who destroyed her world 2 months ago. You look good, Nathaniel said, his eyes traveling down her body with the familiarity of someone who'd mapped every inch of her skin. New clothes? Marcus has excellent taste, she replied, watching his jaw tighten at the mention of his business partner's name. The black silk top and fitted jeans had cost more than her old weekly salary, but they were worth it to see that flash of jealousy in Nathaniel's eyes. "Can I come in?" "No." Raquel stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind her. Zoe was finally asleep after asking for the 100th time when Uncle Nate was coming back. Some wounds needed protection from the people who'd caused them. Nathaniel moved closer, close enough that she could see the dark circles under his eyes. "Baby, we need to talk about this hotel project. You're in over your head with Marcus." "Don't call me baby." The words came out sharper than she'd intended. "You lost that right when you chose to humiliate me in public. I made a mistake. You made a choice." Raquel crossed her arms, creating a barrier between them. "Amanda's 6 months pregnant, Nathaniel. You've been planning this for months while whispering promises in my ear." His composure cracked slightly. "It's complicated. The pregnancy wasn't planned, but keeping me in the dark was." She studied his face, looking for the man she'd fallen in love with, and finding only polished desperation. "What do you want, Nathaniel? Because if you came here to apologize, you're 2 months too late. I want you to stop this revenge fantasy with Marcus." His voice hardened, showing glimpses of the cutthroat businessman who'd built an empire from nothing. "He's using you, Raquel. Marcus doesn't care about your feelings. He cares about destroying me. And you care about my feelings?" Raquel laughed, the sound bitter in the humid night air. "Where was that concern when you announced your engagement to another woman on our anniversary?" Nathaniel stepped closer, his hand reaching for her face before she jerked back. "I was protecting you. My world, our world, it would have destroyed you eventually. The pressure, the expectations, the way they treat people like us who came from nothing." "People like us?" Heat flashed through her chest. "You mean people like me? You've been rich long enough to forget where you came from, but I'm still the maid who doesn't belong, right?" "That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant." Raquel moved toward the door, done with this conversation. "You kept me hidden because you were ashamed. At least Marcus puts my name on his projects." "Marcus is married, Raquel." Nathaniel's voice dropped to a whisper. "His wife might be in New York, but she's still his wife. What happens when she comes back? What happens when he gets bored with playing house with the help?" The words hit like a slap, but Raquel refused to let him see the doubt they planted. "At least he sees me as a partner, not a dirty secret. I see you. You saw me as convenient." She turned back to face him fully. "Someone to warm your bed and clean your house without demanding a place at your table." Nathaniel's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression darkened. "Amanda," he said, as if that explained everything. "Your pregnant fiancé is calling?" Raquel asked sweetly. "How romantic. Does she know you're here, begging your ex-mistress to stop embarrassing you?" "This isn't over," Nathaniel said, backing toward his car. "Marcus will hurt you, Raquel, when this business deal falls apart. And it will. You'll be left with nothing again." "Maybe," Raquel said, watching him drive away in his Bentley. "But at least I'll know what nothing looks like. You taught me that lesson pretty well." As his taillights disappeared into the Houston traffic, Raquel's phone rang again. "Marcus." "Hey," she answered, surprised by how much relief she felt hearing his voice. "Everything okay? You sounded stressed when you declined my call earlier." She looked around the Third Ward neighborhood, the same streets where she'd grown up, where dreams went to die unless you fought hard enough to keep them alive. "Just dealing with ghosts," she said. "Are you still coming over?" "On my way now. Chinese food and wine, like I promised." "Good." Raquel smiled for the first time since Nathaniel's arrival. "Because I'm ready for that dessert conversation we started earlier." Marcus's laugh was warm and full of promise. "Careful, Raquel. I might just take you up on that offer." "I'm counting on it," she said, then hung up and went inside to wait for a man who wanted her enough to put her name on buildings instead of hiding her in shadows. But Nathaniel's words echoed in her head. What happens when Marcus gets bored? Some questions only time could answer. Marcus arrived with Thai food instead of Chinese and a bottle of wine that cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Change of plans," he said, holding up the takeout bags. "Figured you might want something spicier tonight." Raquel smiled, accepting the food and trying to ignore how good he looked in jeans and a simple white shirt. Casual looked dangerous on Marcus Webb, like he was pretending to be normal when they both knew better. "Zoe's asleep," she said, leading him to Keisha's small kitchen. "My sister's working a double shift at the hospital, so we have the place to ourselves." "Good." Marcus set the wine on the counter, his eyes never leaving her face. "Because we need to finish the conversation we started at the construction site." They ate in comfortable quiet, sharing pad thai and stolen glances while Houston hummed outside the windows. But underneath the domesticity, electricity crackled between them like a live wire waiting for the right moment to ignite. "Nathaniel came by earlier," Raquel said finally, watching Marcus's expression harden. "What did he want?" "To warn me about you." She took a sip of wine, letting the alcohol warm her from the inside. "Told me you're just using me to destroy him." Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying her face. "And what do you think?" "I think you're both using me," Raquel said honestly. "The difference is you're honest about it, and you're giving me something in return." "What am I giving you?" "Power." The word felt good in her mouth. "Respect. A chance to build something instead of just cleaning up other people's messes." Marcus stood up, moving around the small table until he was close enough to touch. "Is that all I'm giving you?" Raquel's pulse quickened as he reached out, his fingers tracing the line of her jaw. "That depends on what you're offering." "Everything." His thumb brushed across her bottom lip. "Starting with this." When he kissed her, it wasn't the desperate hunger from earlier. This was slower, deeper, a claiming that made her toes curl and her heart race. His hands tangled in her hair while she gripped his shirt, pulling him closer until she could feel his heartbeat against her chest. "Marcus," she gasped against his mouth, "we should talk about what this means." "It means I'm tired of pretending I don't want you," he said, his lips trailing down her neck. "It means I've been thinking about touching you like this since the day Nathaniel introduced us 2 years ago." The confession made her knees weak. 2 years. 2 years of watching him take you for granted. 2 years of seeing you light up rooms while he kept you in shadows. Marcus pulled back to look at her, his eyes dark with want and something deeper. 2 years of wishing you were mine instead of his. The honesty in his voice broke something loose in her chest. This wasn't just revenge or rebound. This was want that had been building long before Nathaniel's betrayal gave it permission to breathe. "Show me," she whispered, taking his hand and leading him toward the guest bedroom where she'd been staying. The room was small, barely big enough for the double bed and dresser, but Marcus looked at her like they were in a palace suite. His hands were reverent as he undressed her, each piece of clothing removed with the patience of a man who'd waited too long to rush now. "You're beautiful," he said, his voice rough with need as she stood before him in just her black lace underwear. "So damn beautiful it hurts to look at you sometimes." When she reached for his shirt, he caught her hands. "Are you sure about this? Because once we cross this line, everything changes." Raquel looked into his eyes. This man who'd offered her partnership when others offered pity, who'd put her name on buildings when others put her in shadows. "Everything already changed the night Nathaniel threw me away. This is just me choosing what comes next." That was all the permission Marcus needed. He lifted her onto the bed like she weighed nothing, his mouth finding hers again while his hands explored skin that had been starving for touch that meant something more than transaction. "I want to taste every inch of you," he whispered against her throat. "I want to make you forget every other man who ever touched you." "Then stop talking," Raquel said, arching against him, "and start proving it." Outside, Houston slept. Inside, two people who'd been circling each other for months finally stopped pretending they could resist the pull between them. But in the morning, everything would be different. In the morning, there would be consequences. Raquel woke up wrapped in expensive sheets and Marcus's arms, feeling like a completely different woman than the one who'd gone to sleep. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, highlighting the contrast between their skin, his olive-toned and marked with old construction scars, hers darker and now decorated with evidence of the night they'd shared. Her body ached in the most delicious way possible. "Good morning, beautiful," Marcus murmured against her neck, his voice rough with sleep and satisfaction. "Good morning yourself," she said, turning in his arms to face him. In the morning light, he looked younger somehow, less like the ruthless businessman and more like the man who'd whispered her name like a prayer while making love to her body. Any regrets? He asked, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. Only that we waited so long. The answer surprised her with its honesty. What about you? My only regret is that I have to leave soon. Marcus kissed her forehead. Construction meeting at 8, and then I have to deal with Elena's lawyers. Reality crashed back like cold water. Elena, his wife who was still technically his wife, even if she'd been living in New York for months. The woman whose divorce settlement could destroy everything Marcus had built. Marcus, Raquel started, but he silenced her with a kiss. Don't, he said. Don't let the complicated parts ruin what just happened between us. What had just happened between us? She needed to know where she stood, what last night meant in the light of day. Are we partners? Are we more? Are we just... We're everything, Marcus said firmly. Business partners, lovers, and whatever else we decide to become. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. He glanced at it, and his expression darkened. Nathaniel. Don't answer it, Raquel said quickly. I have to. We still have 3 active projects together. Marcus sat up, reaching for his phone. This won't take long. But Raquel could hear Nathaniel's voice through the speaker, sharp with barely controlled rage. I know you're with her, Marcus. This little game you're playing, it ends now. I don't know what you're talking about, Marcus said calmly, but his free hand found Raquel's under the covers, squeezing tight. The hotel project. Raquel. This pathetic attempt to get back at me for the River Oaks deal. Nathaniel's voice was ice cold. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Marcus's jaw tightened. Find out what exactly? That you've been planning this for months. Using her heartbreak to manipulate her into your bed and your business. Very romantic. Marcus, does she know about the other women? About why Elena really moved to New York? Raquel felt something cold settle in her stomach. Other women? She looked at Marcus, who was staring at his phone like it was a bomb about to explode. You're fishing, Nathaniel, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Ask him, Raquel. Nathaniel's voice turned silky smooth. Ask him about Jessica from the Dallas office. About Maria, who used to manage his downtown properties. Ask him if you're special, or if you're just the latest project he's acquired. The line went dead. Silence stretched between them like a chasm. Raquel sat up, pulling the sheet around herself, suddenly feeling exposed in ways that had nothing to do with being naked. Is it true? She asked quietly. Marcus ran his hands through his hair, looking older than he had moments before. It's complicated. That's not an answer. Yes, he said finally. There were others. But Raquel, what we have is what? Different. She got out of bed, reaching for her clothes with hands that shook slightly. Or just newer? You're not just another project, Marcus said, standing up and reaching for her. Last night meant something. To who? Raquel stepped away from his touch. To you? Or just to your plan to destroy Nathaniel? Both. The honesty in his voice stopped her cold. I won't lie to you, Raquel. I wanted to hurt him, and you were the perfect weapon. But somewhere along the way, it became about wanting you for yourself. Somewhere along the way, she repeated slowly. So when Nathaniel was right, this started as revenge. It started as business, Marcus corrected. It became personal the moment you walked into my office wearing that black dress like armor. Raquel finished dressing, her mind racing. 2 men, 2 different forms of betrayal. One who'd hidden her away, another who'd collected her like a trophy in his war against his former friend. I need time to think, she said, moving toward the door. Raquel, wait. The hotel opens in 4 months. Marcus, I'll finish what we started, because I need the money and because I won't let either of you destroy what I've built. She paused at the door, looking back at him. But this, whatever this was, it's complicated now. It was always complicated, he said softly. Maybe, but now I know exactly how complicated. As she left Marcus's penthouse and rode the elevator down to street level, Raquel realized the game had changed again. She was no longer just a pawn in their war. It was time to become a player. 3 weeks later, Raquel Evans walked into the monthly Houston Business Association meeting like she owned the room. The Petroleum Club's dining room fell silent as she entered. Conversations stopping mid-sentence, champagne glasses pausing halfway to lips. Houston's elite had been waiting for this moment since the hotel project hit the society pages, wondering if the maid-turned-designer would crash and burn under their scrutiny. Instead, she commanded attention like a queen addressing her court. "Gentlemen, ladies," she said, nodding to the room full of oil executives, real estate moguls, and society wives who controlled half of Texas's economy. "Thank you for including me in tonight's discussion about downtown development." She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a midnight blue dress that cost 3 months of her old salary, paired with jewelry borrowed from Keisha's collection and confidence she'd built one confrontation at a time. The message was clear. She belonged here, and she wasn't going anywhere. Marcus sat at table 12, his eyes following her every movement with a mixture of pride and hunger that made her pulse quicken despite everything that had happened between them. They'd maintained professional distance for 3 weeks, but the tension crackled between them like electricity waiting for the right conductor. Nathaniel occupied table 5 with Amanda, his pregnant fiancée looking young and overwhelmed beside Houston's power brokers. When their eyes met across the room, Raquel saw something she hadn't expected, regret mixed with desperate longing. Ms. Evans called Patricia Morrison, the oil heiress who controlled more of Houston's social calendar than the mayor. "We're all curious about your hotel project. It's quite ambitious for someone so new to the industry." The pause before new was intentional, loaded with implications about Raquel's background. A year ago, the subtle insult would have made her shrink back. Tonight, it made her smile. "Ambition is what built this city, Mrs. Morrison," Raquel replied smoothly. "My project brings something Houston's luxury market has been missing: authentic elegance with soul. Not just another glass tower, but a destination that honors our city's history while embracing its future." She moved through the room like a politician working a crowd, sharing details about the hotel's design, the jobs it would create, and the downtown revitalization it represented. But underneath the professional charm, she was playing a different game entirely. Every compliment she accepted, every business card she collected, every laugh she earned from Houston's elite was a blow to Nathaniel's pride and a chess piece moved in her favor. She wasn't just promoting her hotel. She was claiming her place in a world that had always existed above her reach. "The grand opening is set for Valentine's weekend," she told a group of potential investors. The same weekend as several other significant Houston social events. Everyone in the room knew she meant Nathaniel's wedding. The timing wasn't coincidental, and nobody pretended otherwise. "Interesting scheduling choice," said Richard Hayes, who controlled 3 of Houston's largest construction firms. "Some might call it strategic. I prefer to think of it as confident," Raquel replied. "The best way to introduce something new is during a weekend when Houston's elite are already celebrating excellence." Marcus appeared at her elbow with a glass of champagne and a smile that was pure admiration. "Excuse me, gentlemen. I need to borrow my business partner for a moment." As he guided her toward a quieter corner of the room, his hand on the small of her back sent familiar heat through her body. 3 weeks of professional distance had only made the attraction stronger. "You're magnificent," he said quietly, close enough that she could smell his cologne. "Watching you work this room is better than watching a masterclass in power dynamics." "I learned from the best," she replied, accepting the champagne but maintaining distance between their bodies. "Multiple teachers, actually." Marcus's expression darkened slightly. "Are we going to keep pretending that what happened between us was just business? Weren't you the one who taught me that everything is business in the end? That was before I realized how much I needed you in my life." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Not just as a partner, Raquel. As everything." Before she could respond, Nathaniel appeared beside them like a storm cloud in an expensive suit. "Mind if I cut in? I'd like a word with my former employee." "Current business partner," Marcus corrected coldly. "And she doesn't need your permission for anything anymore." "Actually," Raquel said, setting down her champagne glass and looking between both men, "I can speak for myself. I always could. I just forgot that for a while." She turned to face the room full of Houston's elite, all watching the drama unfold between the 3 of them. This was her moment. not to choose between two men, but to claim her own power. "If you'll excuse me, gentlemen," she said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear, "I have a hotel to finish and a city to conquer. I don't have time for men who can't decide if they want to protect me, use me, or compete with me." The room went silent again, but this time it felt different. Respectful, almost. As she walked away from both of them, Raquel felt something shift in her chest. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running from a fight or waiting for someone to rescue her. She was becoming the kind of woman who saved herself. But in a room full of predators, showing strength also meant painting a target on her back. The real game was just beginning. 2 days later, Raquel's world started crumbling in the most unexpected way. She was reviewing fabric samples in the hotel's future lobby when Detective Sarah Chun walked through the construction entrance with the kind of expression that meant somebody's life was about to change forever. "Ms. Evans? I'm Detective Chun, Houston PD. I need to ask you a few questions about your relationship with Marcus Webb." The fabric samples scattered to the floor as Raquel's hands went cold. "What kind of questions?" "The kind that involve financial fraud and money laundering." Detective Chin's voice was professional but not unkind. "Mr. Webb is under investigation for using construction projects to hide illegal gambling debts and wash dirty money through offshore accounts." The construction site suddenly felt like a trap closing around her. Workers continued hammering and drilling, but their sounds became background noise to the roaring in Raquel's ears. "I don't understand," she said carefully. "I'm just the interior designer." "With your name on all the legal documents as co-owner," Detective Chin said, pulling out a tablet. "According to these records, you're listed as equal partner in 3 separate LLCs that have received over $2 million in suspicious payments from overseas accounts." Raquel's legs went weak. "That's impossible. I never signed anything making me co-owner of." She stopped talking as the truth hit her like a physical blow. All those papers Marcus had asked her to sign over the past few months. Financial documents, he'd said. Standard business contracts for design consultants. She'd trusted him completely, signing her name wherever he indicated without reading the fine print. Just like she'd trusted Nathaniel completely for 2 years. "Ms. Evans, I need you to come to the station for questioning," Detective Chin continued. "You have the right to an attorney. She'll need one." Both women turned to see Nathaniel approaching, his face grim but determined. He looked at Detective Chun with the confidence of a man who'd dealt with law enforcement before. "I'm Nathaniel Brooks, Ms. Evans' legal counsel." "Since when are you a lawyer?" Raquel asked, her voice sharper than intended. "Since I finished law school before going into real estate," Nathaniel replied. "Detective Chun, my client won't be answering any questions today. We'll need time to review these allegations and the evidence supporting them." Detective Chin nodded. "Ms. Evans, don't leave Houston without notifying us. We'll be in touch." As the detective walked away, silence stretched between Raquel and Nathaniel like a minefield. Construction workers continued their tasks around them, but she felt completely exposed, like everyone could see her life falling apart in real time. "Why are you helping me?" she asked finally. "Because Marcus played you the same way I did," Nathaniel said quietly. "The difference is I was protecting my own cowardice. He's protecting his criminal enterprise. And you know this how?" Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "Because I've been investigating him for 6 months. The River Oaks deal that fell through? It wasn't coincidence. The City Planning Commission received an anonymous tip about irregularities in Marcus's financing. You turned him in?" Raquel stared at him, trying to process this new layer of betrayal and protection. "I tried to warn you," Nathaniel said. "That night at your sister's place, when I told you Marcus was using you, I meant it literally. He's been using your name and your minority business certification to qualify for projects he couldn't get otherwise." The final piece clicked into place. Marcus hadn't chosen her for her design skills or even for revenge against Nathaniel. He'd chosen her because she was the perfect front for his illegal operations, a woman desperate enough to sign documents without reading them, grateful enough not to ask too many questions. "Where is he now?" she asked. "Unknown. His office was raided this morning. Looks like he cleared out some time last night." Nathaniel moved closer, his voice gentling. Raquel, how much money do you have access to right now? The question made her stomach drop. Why? Because if you're listed as co-owner of his companies, the FBI can freeze all associated accounts pending investigation. Your hotel project, your salary, everything you put in your name, it's all potential evidence now. Raquel sank onto a stack of building materials, the weight of her situation finally hitting her. 3 months ago, she'd been a heartbroken housekeeper with nothing to lose. Now she was a potential federal criminal with everything to lose. I trusted him, she whispered. He counted on that, Nathaniel said, sitting beside her carefully. Just like I counted on it. So what now? Do I go to prison for being stupid twice? Now we fight, Nathaniel said firmly. We prove you were manipulated, not complicit. We show the FBI that you're a victim, not a criminal. Raquel looked at him, the man who'd broken her heart but was now offering to save her life. And what do you want in return? Nothing, Nathaniel said, and for the first time in months, she believed he was telling the truth. I want nothing except the chance to make up for what I did to you. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Trust no one. They're all playing games with your life. There's more to this story than you know. A friend. Raquel showed the message to Nathaniel, who frowned. Any idea who sent this? No, she lied, because suddenly she had a suspicion that made her blood run cold. What if Marcus hadn't disappeared? What if he was still in Houston, watching everything unfold according to a plan much more complex than anyone realized? In a game where everyone was lying, the truth was the most dangerous weapon of all. The truth came from the last person Raquel expected. Amanda Rodriguez, Nathaniel's pregnant fiancée. They met at a downtown coffee shop 3 days after the FBI raid. Amanda looking nervous and younger than her 24 years. Her belly curved under a designer maternity dress that probably cost more than Raquel's monthly expenses. Thank you for coming, Amanda said, her voice shaky. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me. I'm here, Raquel said simply, studying the girl who'd replaced her in Nathaniel's life. Up close, Amanda was beautiful in that fresh-faced way that money couldn't buy. The kind of natural beauty that made older women remember their own youth with bitter longing. I need to tell you something about Marcus and Nathaniel, Amanda said, glancing around the coffee shop like she expected FBI agents to jump out from behind the espresso machine. About why everything happened the way it did. I'm listening. Amanda pulled out her phone, scrolling through a series of text messages. These are from 8 months ago, before Nathaniel and I got together. Raquel read the messages, her blood growing colder with each line. Marcus, the Evans girl, is getting too comfortable. She's asking questions about the offshore accounts. Unknown number. Handle it. Make her trust you completely or eliminate her as a problem. Marcus, Nathaniel won't like it if I hurt her directly. He's more attached than he admits. Unknown number. Then use Nathaniel. Make him break up with her publicly. Humiliate her enough that she'll do anything for revenge. Marcus. And if she won't cooperate? Unknown number. Then she becomes collateral damage in a much bigger game. Who is the unknown number? Raquel asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elena Webe, Marcus's wife. Amanda's hand shook as she put the phone away. She never moved to New York for her art career. She's been in Houston the whole time, coordinating everything from a downtown penthouse. The world shifted under Raquel's feet. Elena Webb, the sophisticated woman she'd met exactly twice at charity functions. The wife who'd supposedly abandoned her marriage months ago. The woman who'd been pulling strings while everyone else danced to her music. Why are you telling me this? Raquel asked. Because I'm not just Nathaniel's fiancée, Amanda said quietly. I'm FBI agent Amanda Rodriguez, and this has been an 18-month undercover operation to bring down Elena's money laundering network. The coffee shop around them seemed to blur at the edges. Raquel gripped her cup so tightly she was surprised it didn't shatter. You're FBI, she repeated slowly. Elena's been using Houston's construction boom to wash money for several criminal organizations. Marcus thought he was running the show, but he was just another tool. The gambling debts, the offshore accounts, the illegal projects, all designed to create a paper trail that led to him while keeping Elena clean. And Nathaniel? Complicated. Amanda's expression softened. He started investigating Marcus 6 months ago because he suspected something was wrong. But he didn't know about Elena until 3 weeks ago, when my team finally had enough evidence to move. Raquel's mind raced through the past few months, seeing every conversation and decision in a new light. The anniversary dinner, the public breakup, that was all planned. Nathaniel's idea, but not for the reasons you think. Amanda leaned forward, her voice urgent. Elena threatened to kill you if you got too close to the truth. The public humiliation was supposed to make you hate Nathaniel enough to stay away from him, keeping you safe while we built our case. And Marcus seducing me was part of Elena's plan. Elena needed someone trustworthy to sign documents and provide legitimate business credentials. Your minority business certification was worth millions in government contracts. But Marcus, Amanda paused. Marcus actually fell for you. That wasn't part of anyone's plan. Raquel laughed, the sound bitter and raw. So I was a pawn in everyone's game, but at least one of my chess players caught feelings? You were never a pawn, Amanda said firmly. You were the queen they were all trying to protect or capture. Elena saw you as a threat because Nathaniel loves you enough to burn his own world down to keep you safe. Marcus saw you as salvation because you made him remember what it felt like to want something more than money and power. And what do you see me as? The key to ending this. Amanda reached across the table, covering Raquel's hand with her own. Elena's getting desperate. The FBI raid spooked her, and she's planning to eliminate all the loose ends before disappearing with her stolen millions. Loose ends meaning what? You, Nathaniel, Marcus, anyone who can connect her to the criminal network. Amanda's grip tightened. She's already tried to have Marcus killed twice since he went into hiding. The only reason you're still alive is because Nathaniel's been paying for private security to watch you without your knowledge. Raquel thought about the past few days, remembering faces that had appeared in multiple locations, cars that had followed the same route she took. She'd attributed it to paranoia. Instead, it had been protection. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Help us catch her. We're a wire. Meet with Elena, get her to confess on tape. End this game once and for all. And if I say no," Amanda's expression was gentle but honest, "then you spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering when Elena decides you're too dangerous to let live." Outside the coffee shop, Houston traffic moved like blood through arteries, the city pulsing with life while Raquel's world balanced on the edge of a knife. "There's something else," Amanda said quietly. "Elena's planning to frame you for Marcus's murder. She's going to kill him and make it look like a crime of passion, the scorned lover who couldn't handle being used. But Marcus isn't dead. Yet." Amanda's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and paled. "We need to go. Now." Elena just moved up her timeline. As they rushed toward Amanda's car, Raquel realized the game had never been about love or revenge or even money. It had always been about survival. And now, for the first time in her life, she was ready to fight for hers. 24 hours later, Raquel sat in a downtown hotel room while FBI technicians taped. "The wire's sensitive enough to pick up whispers," Agent Morrison explained, adjusting the tiny microphone. "But you need to keep Elena talking. Get her to admit to the money laundering, the threats, the plans to frame you." "What if she suspects something?" Raquel asked, trying to control her racing heart. "Then you improvise," Amanda said from across the room. She traded her maternity dresses for tactical gear, looking every inch the federal agent she'd always been. Elena's narcissistic. She wants to gloat about how smart she's been. Use that. Nathaniel paced by the window, his usually perfect composure cracked with worry. "This is insane. You're putting her directly in harm's way." "She's already in harm's way," Agent Morrison replied. "This is her chance to take control of the situation. And if Elena tries to kill her during the meeting, we'll have 6 agents positioned around the location, plus snipers on 2 buildings," Amanda said. "Raquel will be as safe as we can make her." "As safe as you can make her isn't safe enough," Nathaniel snapped. "Elena's already killed 3 people to protect this operation." Raquel looked up at him, seeing the fear in his eyes that he was trying so hard to hide. "You really have been protecting me, haven't you?" "Every day since that dinner," he admitted. I hired the best security firm in Houston. They've been watching you around the clock. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have told me to stop. Nathaniel moved closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Because I couldn't live with myself if something happened to you because of my mistakes. The technician finished with the wire, stepping back to test the audio levels. Raquel's heartbeat echoed through the room's speakers, fast and loud. Try to keep calm during the meeting, Agent Morrison said. High stress can cause the equipment to malfunction. I'll try to remember that while I'm confronting a killer, Raquel replied dryly. Her phone buzzed. Elena's name appeared on the screen with an address and a time. 1 hour. Come alone, or your daughter pays the price. The room went cold. She knows about Zoe, Raquel whispered, her hand shaking as she showed the message to Amanda. We've got units moving to your sister's apartment now, Amanda said, already on her radio. Zoe will be safe. You promise? I promise. But promises felt fragile when they came from people who'd been lying to her for months, even with good intentions. Nathaniel knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. You don't have to do this. We can find another way. What other way? Raquel looked into his eyes, seeing the man she'd fallen in love with underneath all the lies and protection schemes. Elena won't stop until I'm dead. At least this way, I have a chance to fight back. If something happens to you, it won't. She squeezed his hands, surprised by her own certainty. I'm not the same woman who got destroyed at that anniversary dinner. I'm stronger now. You were always strong, Nathaniel said. I was just too scared to see it. Agent Morrison cleared his throat. Ms. Evans, we need to go over the plan one more time. For the next 30 minutes, they rehearsed every possible scenario. What to do if Elena became suspicious. How to signal for help. Where the backup teams would be positioned. But underneath all the tactical planning, Raquel felt something else building in her chest. Not fear, but anger. Elena Webb had destroyed her life, manipulated the men she cared about, and now threatened her child. The woman had turned love into a weapon and trust into a trap. One more thing, Amanda said as they prepared to leave. Elena's going to try to get under your skin. She'll say things about Nathaniel, about Marcus, about you. Don't let her. What kind of things? That you're nothing special. That both men were just using you. That you'll never be anything more than the maid who forgot her place. Amanda's expression hardened. She'll try to make you feel small. Raquel stood up, checking her reflection in the hotel mirror. The woman looking back at her wasn't the broken housekeeper from 4 months ago. This woman had survived betrayal, built a business, and discovered her own worth through fire and pain. Let her try, Raquel said quietly. I know exactly who I am now. As they left for the meeting, Nathaniel caught her arm. Raquel, if we don't get another chance to talk. We will, she said firmly, because I'm coming back from this. And when I do, we're going to have a very long conversation about trust and second chances and whether love can survive this much truth. Hope flickered in his eyes. Does that mean? It means ask me again tomorrow, she said, after I help put Elena Webb in prison where she belongs. The city of Houston spread out below them as they drove toward the meeting that would determine everyone's future. For the first time in months, Raquel Evans felt like she held all the cards. Now, she just had to play them right. Elena Webb looked like a queen holding court in the penthouse apartment overlooking Buffalo Bayou. Raquel, darling, she said, rising from a cream-colored sofa that probably cost more than most cars. So good of you to come. I was beginning to think you'd lost your nerve. The apartment was everything Raquel expected from a woman who laundered money for criminal organizations. Expensive, cold, and designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Houston's skyline, but Elena commanded attention like she owned every building in view. Your message mentioned my daughter, Raquel said, keeping her voice steady while the wire recorded every word. Where is she? Safe. For now. Elena moved to a bar cart, pouring herself wine like they were having a casual social visit. Would you like a drink? We have so much to discuss. I'm fine. What do you want, Elena? Straight to business. I like that. Elena's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. I want you to disappear, Raquel. Permanently. And I want you to take the blame for Marcus's unfortunate death with you. Marcus is dead. The words came out strangled. Not yet, but he will be within the hour. Elena checked her diamond watch with casual indifference. Amazing what desperation can drive a man to do. Everyone will believe he killed himself rather than face federal prison. Raquel's heart hammered against the recording device. You're going to murder him. I'm going to clean up loose ends. Elena moved closer, circling Raquel like a predator sizing up prey. Marcus got sloppy, emotional, started believing his own lies about caring for you. That kind of weakness is dangerous in our line of work. Our line of work? I was never part of your criminal organization. Elena laughed, the sound like breaking crystal. Oh, sweetie, you signed documents making you a co-owner in 6 different shell companies. Your name is on bank accounts in 3 countries. Your fingerprints are all over evidence that will send you to prison for 20 years. I didn't know what I was signing. Ignorance isn't a defense in federal court. Elena picked up a tablet, showing Raquel financial documents with her forged signature. But don't worry, you won't live long enough for trial. The confession Elena was building would put her away forever, but Raquel needed more. She needed Elena to admit to the murders, the threats, the entire criminal network. Why me? Raquel asked. Why destroy my life? Because you were convenient, Elena said with casual cruelty. A nobody with nothing to lose, desperate enough to sign anything for a chance at a better life. Perfect patsy material. And Nathaniel? Was he part of your plan too? Elena's expression darkened. Nathaniel was supposed to be a simple distraction. Keep you busy while Marcus handled the business side. But he developed actual feelings for the help. Started asking inconvenient questions about Marcus's financing. So you destroyed our relationship. I protected my investment. Elena moved to the window, looking out over the city like she owned every building in sight. The public breakup was necessary. You needed to hate Nathaniel enough to trust Marcus completely. But Marcus fell for me too. Marcus fell for the idea of redemption through love. Pathetic, really. A man his age believing in fairy tales. Elena turned back to Raquel, her eyes cold as winter. Do you want to know the truth about your great love story? Tell me. Neither of them ever loved you, darling. They loved the idea of saving you. Nathaniel loved playing white knight to the tragic single mother. Marcus loved the challenge of stealing his friend's toy. Elena's voice was poison wrapped in silk. You were never special, Raquel. You were just available. The words hit like physical blows, but Raquel forced herself to stay standing. Elena was trying to break her spirit before ending her life. If I was so worthless, Raquel said, why go through all this trouble to destroy me? Elena's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something ugly underneath the beauty. Because worthless little girls like you don't get to play in worlds like mine. You don't get to take what belongs to women like me. You don't get to matter. There was the real truth underneath all the criminal schemes. Elena hadn't targeted Raquel for money or convenience. She targeted her for daring to rise above her station, for threatening the natural order that kept people like Elena on top and people like Raquel serving their coffee. And now, Raquel asked, now you're going to write a confession admitting to the money laundering, to killing Marcus in a jealous rage, and to planning your own suicide out of guilt. Elena pulled out a gun, holding it steady in perfectly manicured hands. Very tragic, very believable. What if I refuse? Elena's smile was pure ice. Then your daughter dies first, and you get to watch. The wire captured every word, every threat, every piece of evidence the FBI needed to destroy Elena's empire. Now Raquel just had to live long enough for them to use it. You made one mistake, Elena, Raquel said, backing slowly toward the window while Elena kept the gun trained on her. What's that, darling? You assumed I came here helpless. Raquel pressed her back against the glass, feeling the FBI wire dig into her skin. You assumed I was still the same broken woman from that anniversary dinner. Aren't you? Elena moved closer, close enough that Raquel could see the madness hiding behind her polished exterior. You're still the maid who forgot her place. Still the nobody who thought she could matter. Maybe, But this nobody is wearing an FBI wire that just recorded your entire confession. Elena's perfect composure correct. You're lying. Agent Amanda Rodriguez says hello, Raquel said, watching Elena's face go white. Your husband's fake pregnant girlfriend? She's been building a case against you for 18 months. The gun wavered in Elena's hand. That's impossible. Check your bank accounts, Raquel suggested. I'm betting they're all frozen by now. Elena fumbled for her phone with one hand, keeping the gun pointed at Raquel with the other. Her face went from white to gray as she scrolled through emergency alerts from her financial institutions. Every account, Raquel said. Every shell company. Every offshore investment. The FBI has been tracking your money for months. You stupid little. Elena raised the gun, her finger tightening on the trigger. The penthouse windows exploded inward as FBI snipers took their shot. Elena Webb crumpled to the marble floor, her blood mixing with crystal shard from the shattered wine glass, the gun clattering away from fingers that would never pull another trigger. Target down. Target down. Amanda's voice crackled through hidden speakers as federal agents swarmed the apartment from every entrance. Raquel slid down the broken window to the floor, shaking so hard she could barely breathe. It was over. The nightmare that had consumed her life for months was finally over. Raquel. Nathaniel's voice cut through the chaos as he pushed past agents to reach her. Are you hurt? Are you okay? She looked up at him. This man who'd broken her heart and then spent months protecting her from the shadows. Blood from the shattered glass had cut her arms, but she was alive. More than alive, she was free. I'm okay, she said, accepting his help to stand. Is Zoe safe? Amanda confirmed, appearing beside them with her FBI vest on, but her eyes soft with relief. Your sister and daughter are in protective custody. They're fine. And Marcus? Alive. Elena's people had him in a warehouse on the east side, but we got there in time. Amanda paused. He wants to see you, but first we need to debrief everything that happened here. For the next 3 hours, Raquel gave her statement to federal agents while Houston's crime scene teams processed Elena's apartment. The penthouse that had seemed so intimidating now looked like what it truly was, the hollow shell of a woman who'd thought money and violence could buy her happiness. When they finally released her, Nathaniel was waiting in the FBI building's lobby with coffee and a look in his eyes that made her heart skip. So, he said as they walked into the Houston evening air, we survived. We did. Raquel looked around at the city she'd called home her entire life, seeing it with new eyes. What happens now? Now we figure out if two people can rebuild trust after it's been shattered, Nathaniel said. Now we find out if love is strong enough to survive the truth. All of it. Even the part where you paid men to follow me around for months. Especially that part. He stopped walking, turned to face her fully. Raquel, I know I have no right to ask for another chance. I know I hurt you in ways that might never heal. But if there's any part of you that still believes we could, ask me tomorrow, she said, echoing her words from days earlier. Ask me after I've slept in my own bed without looking over my shoulder. Ask me after I've hugged my daughter and remembered what safety feels like. And then we'll see if fairy tales can survive the real world. Nathaniel's smile was worth every broken heart and shattered dream of the past 4 months. I'll take those odds. As they walked toward his car, Raquel felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope mixed with caution, love tempered by wisdom, and the knowledge that she was strong enough to choose her own ending. The game was over. Now real life could begin. 1 year later, Raquel Evans stood in the grand ballroom of the Raquel Evans Hotel, watching Houston's elite celebrate the first anniversary of the city's most exclusive destination. The hotel had exceeded every expectation, booked solid for months, featured in national magazines, and generating enough profit to secure her financial independence for life. More importantly, it had proven to everyone who'd ever doubted her that the maid from Third Ward belonged anywhere she chose to build a throne. Mama, you look like a princess, Zoe said, appearing beside her in a matching burgundy dress that made her look older than her 8 years. Not a princess, baby, Raquel said, adjusting her daughter's hair ribbon. A queen. Queens build their own kingdoms. Across the ballroom, Marcus Webb raised his champagne glass in her direction. He looked healthier than he had in years, having spent the past 12 months in therapy and community service instead of prison. His testimony against Elena's criminal network had earned him immunity, but more importantly, it had earned him peace. Their relationship had evolved into something unexpected, genuine friendship built on shared trauma and mutual respect. He'd never be her lover again, but he'd become something more valuable, proof that people could change when they chose healing over revenge. M.S. Evans, a reporter from Houston Life magazine, approached with a photographer in tow. Could we get a few shots for our Houston Power Women feature? Of course. Raquel posed beside the custom chandelier she designed. 5,000 pieces of crystal that caught the light like captured stars. Every fixture, every fabric choice, every detail in the hotel told the story of a woman who'd refused to let betrayal define her future. As the photographer worked, she caught sight of Nathaniel entering the ballroom with his legal team. They'd spent the past year rebuilding their relationship one honest conversation at a time. No secrets, no protection schemes, just two adults learning to love each other without games or manipulation. He'd divorced Amanda amicably once her FBI assignment ended, understanding that their fake marriage had served its purpose. More importantly, he learned to trust Raquel's strength instead of trying to shield her from life's complications. The Queen of Houston Hospitality, the reporter said, scribbling notes. What advice would you give to women trying to rebuild their lives after betrayal? Raquel considered the question while watching the party around her. Friends who'd supported her climb, business partners who respected her vision, and a daughter who'd never again have to worry about their next meal or safe place to sleep. Don't let anyone else write your story, she said finally. Not the people who hurt you, not the people who want to save you, and especially not the people who think they know your worth better than you do. The reporter nodded, but Raquel wasn't finished. And remember that sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying the people who destroyed you. It's building something so beautiful, so successful, so undeniably yours that they have to watch you succeed from whatever hell they created for themselves. Elena Webb was serving 25 years in federal prison. Marcus was rebuilding his life one community service hour at a time. Nathaniel was learning to love without conditions or control. And Raquel? Raquel had become exactly who she was always meant to be. One last question, the reporter said. Any wedding plans in your future? Raquel glanced at Nathaniel, who was making his way through the crowd toward her. They talked about marriage, about building a life together that honored both their individual strength and their shared love. But they'd also agreed that legal documents couldn't heal what honest communication and daily choice could repair. Ask me next year, she said with a smile. Right now, I'm too busy running an empire. As the reporter moved away, Nathaniel finally reached her side. How does it feel? He asked, looking around at the success she'd built from the ashes of her old life. Like I'm finally home, Raquel said, accepting the champagne he offered. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And where is that? She looked around at the hotel that bore her name, at the business she'd built with her own vision and determination, at the daughter who would grow up knowing that queens could rise from any circumstances. At the center of my own story, she said, writing my own ending. The champagne tasted like victory mixed with promise, and for the first time in her life, Raquel Evans knew with absolute certainty that every ending was just another beginning in disguise. The maid had become a queen, and the kingdom was hers to rule. So what would you do if someone saw your worth before you believed in it yourself? Would you run? Or would you build something that lasts? Comment below with what you would have done in her shoes. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that make you feel, think, and maybe even heal a little. Tell me in the comments what aspect of their journey resonated most with you. And remember, the most powerful love doesn't rescue you from your life. It recognizes the strength that's been there all along.